welcome back to the Nerdy Grail. And yeah, if you're watching this video, it means that you probably already heard the news by now. You've probably already watched the latest episode, the finale of Season 2, The Reality War, and you saw Ncuti Gatwa, 15th Doctor, finally leave our screens. He regenerated, but he regenerated into one of the biggest shocks I think we've had for a very long time. Debatably even more of a shock than when David Tennant returned as the 14th Doctor. But I needed to properly break down a video for this because I know during my review of The Reality War it was a little bit all over the place because my head was shot. But I want to do a separate video, and that's what this is, discussing the announcement of the potential 16th Doctor, what this means for the future of the show, and is it as simple as it seems? And that's why we're starting on an article which I found on Doctor Who TV, which got uploaded literally today on June 1st. So just sit back and relax because we're going to go over a few points about Billie Piper potentially being the 16th Doctor, look at a couple of articles, discuss the regeneration, and give you my overall thoughts. So the first thing we're going to look at is this article, which was literally uploaded today, June 1st. Is Billie Piper actually playing the 16th Doctor in Doctor Who, and why it might not be as simple as that? Because I sort of read the article already to just get a brief glimpse of things, and I sort of think, yeah, it might not be as simple as we think. But obviously here you've got some images there. You've got Rose, played by Billie Piper. You've got the Bad Wolf, or the Moment, which was in the Day of the Doctor, also played by Billie Piper. And now you've got the 16th Doctor, played by Billie Piper. So if we go further down in the article, so this is a feature by Ian Breathwaite. So this is what they say. So that just happened. The 15th Doctor's final scenes were strange enough, but then the regeneration began properly. The golden energy flowed, and when the dust sort of settled, we got her. Billie Piper. Not just a cameo, not a blink and you'll miss it flashback. She regenerated in. Yeah, they gave us long enough on the screen to actually see that it was Billie Piper. I thought when the regeneration energy fully took over Ncuti, then it might fade to black and we might not actually get who it's going to be. But no, they showed us Billie. Now that I've been watching Doctor Who for a long time to know that things are really what they seem, and this twist practically demands over-analysis. The internet's already ablaze with theories, but here's where my brain has taken me. Billie Piper is actually playing the 16th Doctor? Question mark. Let's take a look. So it goes back over, obviously, Billie's time on the show. So talking about Rose Tyler, so that she was a companion under Russell T Davies. She played Rose Tyler, a shop assistant from London who stumbled into the TARDIS and changed the Doctor's life forever. But she was no ordinary companion. She wasn't just there to ask questions and get rescued. She was the emotional heart of the story, grounding the 9th and later the 10th Doctors into something real and human. Her chemistry with both Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant helped define the early years of modern Who. And I much preferred her with Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant. I thought their relationship was a lot better. When it was with Ten, it became a little bit more lovey-dovey, and I wasn't really huge on that. But obviously, you know, we had the Bad Wolf, which was the whole arc of Series 1, which they go on to describe here, that Billie Piper's character evolved beyond what anyone expected. In the Series 1 finale, Rose absorbed the heart of the TARDIS and became the Bad Wolf. Across time and space as a warning, or maybe a message to herself, she gained the power to destroy the Daleks, save lives, and even bend reality. This was no longer just a companion, this was a godlike entity who saw all of time and space and rewrote it. And although the Doctor drew that energy out to save her life, its impact lingered. Bad Wolf became a phrase loaded with cosmic weight. It was Rose transformed, changed by time, by love, and by the universe itself. Yeah, and it was the first time in New Who, obviously, because she was the first proper companion, where we would have then going forward these like prophecies or these big story arcs that would change a companion. No, not many companions really in the new series are just companions. There's something bigger, you know, like Clara being the impossible girl. You know, you got Rory and Amy, you know, the girl who waited, you know, and Rory the Centurion who waited 2,000 years for her in the Pandorica. You know, you've got all these companions that are destined to be something greater rather than just be what they were in the classic series, an extra friend for the Doctor. Obviously, we fast forward to the moment from Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special in 2013, and Billie Piper returned, but this time she wasn't playing Rose. She was the physical interface of the moment, a sentient Time Lord weapon capable of wiping out entire races. This version of Billie only appeared to the War Doctor, projecting herself in the form of Rose Tyler's image because that held emotional weight to the Doctor. The future Doctors, obviously. It wasn't Rose and it wasn't Bad Wolf exactly, but it was something else, something ancient, something aware, a being of immense power using a familiar face to guide the Doctor through a near impossible decision. Each time Billie has returned to Doctor Who, it's been to play not just a character, but an idea, a force, a myth, a choice made flesh. Really interesting choice of words there. Which, yeah, Billie obviously, Rose, Bad Wolf, massive, huge, you know. When she came back in Series 4, it was tearing worlds apart. Came back as the moment, you know, to help the Doctor get through the Time War. So really big consequences there. So who now? The regeneration didn't look like a fluke, but it also didn't follow the usual pattern. For one, it never actually finished. There's no definitive moment of stabilisation, no proper new Doctor energy scene. Add to that the absence of any confirmation in the official BBC announcement that Billie Piper is playing the next Doctor, and crucially, the lack of formal credit in the episode itself. Now, I know where this article's going, and before I even discuss it, but you can probably see already, I thought about that the more I rewatched the scene at the end. Normally, yeah, when the Doctor regenerates, or you get a brand new Doctor, it even happened for David Tennant, you know, you usually get where it's followed by like Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, like it says in the article, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, David Tennant as the Doctor. However, this time it just said, and introducing Billie Piper. It didn't actually say introducing Billie Piper as the Doctor. So is there a particular reason for that? Is she actually the Doctor, or are we going to get another bit of a weird 14th Doctor scenario where actually she's going to be just a temporary thing out and it's actually going to be a new Doctor at some point in the future? Who knows? But let's keep reading the article. That omission becomes ever more striking when you compare it to the rest of the credits in the very same episode. First we saw Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, then the credit for Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Both names followed the standard unmistakable phrasing when someone is using the Doctor in canon. Then came Billie. Her name appeared with a very different kind of billing, and introducing Billie Piper. No title, no role, no connection explicitly drawn to the Doctor at all. Now compare that to David Tennant's return in The Power of the Doctor. He was introduced with that same phrase, and introducing, but crucially it was followed by, as the Doctor. There was no ambiguity about who Tennant was meant to be. So with Billie, the absence of the final three-word confirmation stands out. It's not just what they said, it's what they didn't. RTD was also crystal clear that Tennant was not reprising his 10th Doctor role. He was officially the 14th Doctor. It was confirmed in press releases, interviews, and clarified on screen and shown in the credits. No ambiguity, no tricks. Tennant was the Doctor again, which makes the lack of clarity here with Billie Piper even more intriguing. So what are we looking at? A hijacked regeneration, an echo of the Bad Wolf, or the moment stepping in to redirect the future of the Doctor's timeline? RTD has teased this already, saying how and why and who is a story yet to be told. That's not a brush off, that's a breadcrumb. But I'm starting to wonder if we saw was a pivot point in the Doctor's identity. Maybe Billie isn't the Doctor in the traditional sense, but part of something more radical, a sentient TARDIS, a fractured memory, a living paradox. Maybe she's a temporary vessel, a stopgap, and the bridge before the true 16th Doctor arrives. Whatever the case, this isn't just fan service. Billie Piper's return seems to be something more intriguing, and it might just reshape everything we think of and we know about regeneration. As always, time will tell. And yeah, I fully sort of get this vibe. You know, I sort of partly agree with this article because it did really make me think, why did they not say introducing Billie Piper as the Doctor? What's the reason for that? Because even when John Hurt came back, you know, as the War Doctor, a long forgotten incarnation, they said introducing John Hurt as the Doctor. We still got that confirmation. This is the first time that after a regeneration, you know, with the credits anyway, that we've, for New Who, we've not got them say this person is the Doctor. It's just, and introducing Billie Piper. So is that true? Is this actually going to be like a stopgap? Was this actually a normal regeneration? Or because the Doctor, obviously earlier in the story, which I'll get onto in a moment, fractured time, using his regeneration energy, something happened, something caused this weird memory maybe to pop back up and, thinking of Rose or something for some reason, since he was already thinking about 14 or Tennant's incarnation when Jodie popped up saying I was expecting the other guy because he always shows up. So maybe there was something there lingering that Rose sort of, or Billie Piper, whoever she's playing, latched onto and became the Doctor. Who knows? Who's to say? But I thought this was a really interesting article, and I wanted to discuss this in this video. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video, we're going to come back together, and I'm also then going to go through the regeneration, talk about it, and again, give you my thoughts on what I think is going to happen with the future of the show. And is Billie Piper really the 16th Doctor? We're going to discuss that even more now. Yeah, it's mad to think that now this character, Rose Tyler, and also Billie Piper, actually thinking about it, has made history now, realistically, because now she is the first companion to play both Doctor and companion so far. If Rose Tyler or Billie Piper actually officially does become the 16th Doctor, and this isn't just sort of a stopgap or a trick or a hijacking of a regeneration. And I think that's really, really interesting. And like I said, I'm going to be meeting Billie Piper at the Comic-Con in Wales down in August, later this year, in literally about 2 months' time. So I'm really going to be interested to see what she can actually say. Obviously, she's not going to be able to say much, but I know people are going to be asking her the question, oh my goodness, are you the Doctor now? And how did that even come about? Because that is amazing. But yeah, it is interesting to think about. But yeah, in this section of the video, I want to just quickly go over, I say quickly, you know me, I'll ramble, but I want to go over the whole regeneration, I want to say like the more positive side of the regeneration, and there's a couple of things that I didn't like about regeneration, but in Reality War, it was sort of my favourite part, so to speak, the whole build-up anyway, because obviously, the Doctor's basically trying to get Poppy back, but obviously we need to talk about the major focal point when we finally realise that he's planning on killing himself, sacrificing his life in order to save Poppy and bring her back. He obviously says along the lines of, I really liked this face, and that was the first trigger for us that, yeah, he's leaving and we're having a regeneration in this episode. And then the TARDIS sort of beeps, like communicates to him subtly, and then on his scanner screen it puts all the faces of the Doctor, almost like a little reminder of, come on, this isn't the first time this has happened, you can do it, I'll be there for you. Goes through all the faces, up to 14, showing the 14th Doctor, because it doesn't need to show his face. And he then says, I was the best, let's be real, I was the best. And then obviously we get, boom, that shock that Jodie Whittaker comes back. And I love her first line. The best, don't you mean the best male, but don't tell the others. And I love that. And I just love Jodie being there in the new TARDIS, written under Russell T Davies as well. So we get to see her written a little bit differently. And I honestly think that Jodie Whittaker was done really, really well in that little 5-minute scene than the vast majority of her whole era. She got better as her era went on, but I really liked seeing Jodie here. She did a really good job, and she was practically there sort of as someone for the Doctor to hold hands with, there as sort of a talking point of everything will basically be okay, Obviously Jodie tries to talk him out of it at the start, but then realises, it's me, you can't convince me to not, risk my life for someone else, and so supports him, helps him to make the correct decision, and also gives him that bit of advice, that basically it will be okay. We always wish we had more time, but, we're lucky for the time that we've had. 15 and 13 get a good interaction about, love, because 15, post 14 or even from 14 is all about a more loving nature, and says that he loves the Doctor, almost like I loved being you, and I love who you are, and I love who you're going to become. 13's a bit taken aback by this, but then says about Yaz, but 15 then obviously breaks the news to 13 that she never actually tells Yaz that she loves her, but Yaz does know, And we do get that, because in 13, when they're sat on top of the TARDIS having that ice cream talking, Yaz knows that the Doctor truly does like her, but just can't bring herself to say it. And that's just the alien nature of the Doctor. But then obviously, 13 goes, 15 decides, he starts to almost like pull regeneration energy out from himself. He's got like his fists into his chest. He pulls it out, and then like blasts it into the TARDIS console, which practically like almost like breaks the TARDIS console apart. Time shatters. He wakes up then on the grass, and we get that long drawn out goodbye scene in Belinda's house with Belinda and Poppy and Belinda's mother. It's just a nice little scene. And the Doctor finally comes to terms that obviously Belinda's moving on with her life. You get obviously all the reveals that, Belinda was trying to get back for Poppy. It's a nice little closing shot for Belinda, this little chapter. But what I didn't mention in my review is I was a little bit disappointed in Belinda in Reality War, is that she was very wasted. She was practically just shoved in a vault for most of the episode, and it was so out of character for her, for the whole episode. Because when you go back to Interstellar Song Contest and then you watch Wish World and Reality War, even when Original Time comes through, Belinda's still stuck in this motherly role, which is nice. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But it's just not Belinda. Not the Belinda that we know. And so she doesn't really end on the best note, if I'm being perfectly honest. So I was a bit disappointed with the Belinda thing. Obviously, once the Doctor said his goodbyes, travels up to space so that he can be alone, which tends to happen in New Who. He never wants to regenerate with someone around. And then he just starts regenerating. He opens the TARDIS doors. I love the shot of him walking through the TARDIS console room to the front doors, and all the lights are turning off. Don't really know what that's about, but yeah, almost like this is the end for me. You're going to light up now with someone new. But he opens the doors, he stares out, sees the shining star, which is Joy from Joy to the World, what she became in the end. So I think that's quite a nice little touch to bring Joy back. But why her, I'm not too sure. And then the Doctor just, screams out the TARDIS, Joy to the World. And he says that this has been an absolute joy. And I think that is his final words of this has been an absolute joy. Does sort of make sense for 15's character. He was that bubbly character. A bit like 13's Tag You're It makes perfect sense for 13. And I think, he remembered what 13 said, go out with a smile. And that's true. And he went out with a smile. Now, the regeneration effect. I'm not going to lie, it did look not the best. It did look a bit cheap. It did look a bit, I don't know, it just, all the effects there in that scene looked really weird. It didn't look like a normal regeneration. But I don't know if that's the point, which is what we were saying earlier in the article. That this was a bit of a different regeneration again. But I don't know. It just seemed off. I don't know if I'm the only one who thought that. I don't know. Maybe other people thought the regeneration looked a little bit cheaper than normal. But I love the music that was playing in the background. The regeneration music, the Farewell 15 theme was absolutely gorgeous. I haven't been able to stop listening to it. It is beautiful. And obviously, and also when he's regenerating as well, because it's coming out of his arms, it's also coming out of his chest and everything. He does look like a shooting star, which, shooting star. I think it does, that really is really cool. I like that little touch. Really nice, I must admit. And then obviously he fades away, and then boom, we get Billie Piper, who simply says, "Oh, hello." But also what I want to point out as well is when she appears, you can see in her eyes, she's like looking all around, like, what's going on here? And then she says, "Oh, hello," like really, really shocked. And I'm like, what's that about? Because I read that in so many different ways. I read that, firstly, obviously, that she recognises, don't know how, because you haven't seen your face physically, but then again, Tennant remembered the teeth, looked at his hands and thought, oh my god, I'm this face again. But so maybe the Doctor is like, hold on, blonde hair, hold on, oh my goodness, I'm Rose Tyler, so maybe that's the reason that the Doctor does actually recognise that face and is saying, oh, hello, in terms of like, oh my goodness, I'm you? Wow. But also it could be, and this is where, is it actually the 16th Doctor, or is it like a hijacking or something weird? Is it Rose, or the moment, actually? And which is why it says introducing Billie Piper, and doesn't say introducing Billie Piper as a Doctor, because actually she's playing a different character, and is shocked to be in the Doctor's body, outside in the TARDIS. that is also a possibility, and we don't know. And it's so annoying that we're not going to find out for such a long time. But yeah, so I just got all these things flying through my head. You know, what has Russell got planned? And what's going to happen with the future of the show in terms of, you know, because if this is the Doctor, or, well, I mean, at least it is going to be the Doctor for at least a short while anyway, what sort of repercussions is this going to have? Will the Doctor, when they bump into people, you know, who know Rose, think that that's Rose? Will they treat that person differently? Will 14, if say 16 bumped into 14 or bumped into 10, well, bumped into 14, because let's be real, David Tennant's not going to play 10 again. Will he think it's Rose, and will he not accept that that's the Doctor? You know, it's all these things, all these questions that pop into my head that I just, like, I need to get these out because it is ticking over in my mind. And do I think this is a good idea? I don't know. But again, Russell, you need to stop relying on the past, but in particular, your first run. Because think about it, your 3 Doctors, you've had David Tennant, Ncuti Gatwa, and now you've got Billie Piper. You're just trying to relive your glory days. But unfortunately, what you've shown to us is that even though you're not putting all the thought into it, it's almost like a diet version of your original era, and that's really unfortunate. I don't know, it just seems like you're trying to relive the original era, but you got to remember that was like 20 years ago now, and times have changed, people have changed, everyone's changed. You've got to move with the times, and Doctor Who is a show about change. You can't just relive the past. Obviously, that doesn't mean you never do anything from the past, you know, because you can use that. And I love seeing things from the past, especially old villains, but you've been too copy-paste, if you get what I mean. It's far too copy-paste. It's not like using it as, like, an idea or an inspiration. You're just like, no, I'm using that plot line and I'm going to do it again here. And that is not working, is it? But yeah, I'm sorry that this has been a bit of a rambly discussion, but I just wanted to look at that article and I wanted to break down the regeneration and just give you my thoughts overall on the potential of Billie Piper being the new Doctor. She probably is, but also I can't deny there's a part of me in the back of my mind, especially after reading that article, that thinks, is she though? But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Billie Piper potentially being the 16th Doctor? Do you think she is? Do you think there's something more at play? Like this video by giving it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Ncuti Gatwa signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.